Hari Om. In the operating system course of the fifth semester, we talked about what is operating system, what operating systems do. Then we also talked about what are the four major components of your computer system, what is the role of operating system in that, then the two different views of the operating system to explore the concepts. Then we talked about the operating system definitions. Then we discussed some of the computer system organization terminologies to understand how the computer system structure or organization is closely related to the operating system concepts. So in which we talked about the interrupt handling, then the storage hierarchy, so that the storage hierarchy is closely related to the memory management module of the operating system. Then we also talked about the interrupt handling mechanism, so that we can understand how the interrupt handling mechanism of the hardware is closely related to the device management module of the operating system, etc. Now in this video we are going to talk about the operating system structure, because we know that the operate computer organization, the organization of the computer is closely related to the operating system concept also. We know that an operating system provides an environment in which the programs are being executed, right? It provides an environment where all the programs are getting executed. Now, internally, the operating system will vary very greatly in their design concepts, since it is not completely organized based on the computer organization, because the operating system is the software and the computer organization is totally the hardware aspect, right? So, the point to be understood here is, if the hardware supports interrupt mechanism, then you can include interrupt handling in your operating system. If the hardware supports multitasking environment, then in your operating system you can have multitasking module. If the hardware supports the paging technique, let me say the virtual memory paging technique, then the operating system can have paging algorithm as a module for memory management technique, right? So this is how they are closely related, the computer organization and the operating system. One of the most important aspect of the operating system is its ability to multi-program. Now, in your computing, say your operating system may have single programming environment, or your operating system may be having multi-programming environment. But why we need multi-programming is another question to be raised here, because if I am going to use only one program in a computer, if I am using only one program, the memory, right, let me say the memory of the computer can be completely dedicated to that particular program. Now here only this program will be executed if this program is having some input output operations by the time the CPU will be idle, right? Since any program will have around 60 percentage of input output operations, 60 percentage of the program execution, the CPU will be idle. So single user or a single program cannot keep CPU and input output devices busy at all times. Single program cannot keep either the CPU or the input output devices busy at all times. Okay. Whereas if the user is having multiple programs running, then the multiple programming increases the CPU utilization by organizing the jobs so that the CPU always has one program to execute. This is the point to be noted here, right? One of the very important aspect of operating system is the ability to multi-program. Now, why we need multi-programming? Because single user or a single program cannot keep the CPU or the input-output devices busy at all times. Why? Because if it is single programming environment, only one program will be running at a time. So, all the resources will be dedicated to that particular program. So, there is no issue at all. But whenever we have a user program, the user programs will have 60% input output operations and 40% CPU or execution, or let me say the processing instructions. Okay. Now what happens when the program is handling the input output operations? The CPU will be idle. When the CPU instructions are being executed, the processing instructions are being executed, the input output devices will be idle. Now the question is, when it is idle, why don't we utilize that time for other programs? So there evolves the multi-programming environment. Now the multi-programming environment, more than one programs will be there, and these programs will be organized as jobs, and the CPU will have at least one program to execute. That is the point to be noted. So the idea here is the operating system keeps several jobs in memory simultaneously. A subset of total jobs in the system will be kept in the memory. Now one job will be selected and run via job scheduling, right? So this is the algorithm which will be used by the operating system for scheduling a particular job. So what it will do, from the main memory will be very small to accommodate all the jobs. The jobs are kept initially on the disk in a job pool. Then from the pool, the jobs will be selected. So one job will be selected and it will be run via the job scheduling program. When it has to wait, when this job, whichever job is selected currently, has to wait for the input output operations or kind of thing, the operating system will switch to another job, right? So if it is going to be multiple programming environment, inside the memory you will have more than one jobs. If it is single programming environment, only one job will be there, where the entire memory will be dedicated to it. And we know that always one part of the memory will be assigned for the operating system. So right from the byte 0 to the size of the operating system will be allocated to the operating system, and the rest of the memory will be given for the user jobs. Okay. Now here the multi-programmed systems provide an environment in which various system resources are utilized effectively, but they do not provide for user interaction with the computer system sometimes. Okay. Now another concept in the operating system is the multitasking, which is also known as time sharing. So this is actually a logical extension of multi-programming, in which the CPU will switch the jobs so frequently that users cannot interact with each job while it is running, creating interactive computing environment. Okay. So what happens here, the CPU will be executing multiple jobs by switching among them, right? So it will be switching among them, but the switches occur so frequently, right? The switches will occur so frequently that the user cannot even understand which program is being run by the CPU at what time, right? Because the response time will be lesser than 1 second. So you cannot, the user cannot trace which program is being currently executed by the CPU. Now, the time sharing actually requires an interactive computer system, and this provides direct communication between the user and the system. So, the user will be giving instructions to the operating system or to the program directly. He will be using any input device such as keyboard, mouse, anything like that, and waits for the immediate results on the output device. So here the response time will be lesser than 1 second. Okay. And now a time shared operating system will allow many users to share the resources of the computer simultaneously, right? So here each user will have at least one program executing in the memory, and a program loaded into the memory and executing is called as a process. So that is why we sometimes call it as multiple processes running in the machine. Now, the point to be noted here is if several jobs are ready to be brought into the memory, right? I told you the job pool will be there. So, from the job pool, the jobs will be selected. So, if several jobs are ready to be entered into the memory, and if there is not enough room for all of them, then the system will be choosing among them, right? So, this is done by the job scheduling. Because say for example in the diagram it shows only 4 jobs can be accommodated, whereas in the job pool you may be having around 10 jobs. If this is the case, the job scheduler, right, the job scheduler will decide which are the 4 jobs to be accommodated in the main memory. So it will have lots of policies for making decisions. We'll be discussing how the policies will be designed and what are the different scheduling algorithms, etc. later. Now, if several jobs are ready to run at the same time, right, at the same time the jobs are requesting for the CPU or memory, then the system will choose which job will run first. This will be done by the CPU scheduling. So, from the job pool, the jobs will be selected by the job scheduler. So, once the jobs are available in the primary memory, which job is to be executed, that will be decided by the CPU scheduling. Then suppose if the processes do not fit in the memory, say for example here if job 1 is only this much size, it will fit into the memory. Job 2 is only this much size, it will fit into the memory. And so job 3 also, suppose job 4, this much space is free, let us assume. By the time job 4 is coming in, so you can have only if job 4 size is greater than this, ഇതിനേക്കാളും കുറച്ചും കൂടെ വലിയ job size ആണെങ്കിൽ what it will do, the portion of the job will be loaded into the primary memory and the rest of the job will be kept in the secondary storage device itself, which you call as the virtual memory technique. And this virtual memory allows the execution of processes which cannot be loaded completely in the primary memory. Okay, so for which we use a technique called swapping technique in the virtual memory, or we use the paging technique, demand page technique. All these techniques we'll be discussing later, but it uses some kind of virtual memory algorithms for scheduling the process into, sorry, for scheduling the job into the memory, right? So by the time, since I am going to use a virtual memory is nothing but it is not your real physical memory. So here the concept of physical memory is involved, and apart from that how the virtual memory, right, the not real memory is to be managed, which you call as the logical memory. So how the virtual memory concept is divided into physical memory and logical memory, we will be discussing later, right? So the main advantage of the virtual memory scheme is it enables the users to run programs which are larger than the actual physical memory. This is the point to be noted. So if the physical memory size is only 64 KB, your program size is greater than 64 KB, then the virtual memory scheme will allow the program which is greater than the size of the physical memory. And not only that, the virtual memory scheme will help, or it will divide the main memory into large and uniform array of storages, which is called as logical memory. And this logical memory will be uh, like this logical memory will be viewed by the user as part of the physical memory itself, right? So this arrangement will help in different schemes like paging and demand page memory management, paged memory management. All these schemes are coming in the virtual memory. Okay, so these are some of the terms that we should remember here in the operating system structure. One is ability to multi-programming, then ability to multitasking, that uses the time sharing environment where the response time will be lesser than 1 second, and if you have multiple jobs to be loaded into the primary memory, job scheduler will come into the scene. And if all the jobs are simultaneously requesting for the processor, then the CPU scheduler will decide which job has to enter into the processor. Then apart from that, another very important concept to be understood here is, if the size of the user program is greater than the physical memory, then the virtual memory scheme can be introduced. And in the virtual memory scheme, the main memory will be separating the logical memory as viewed by the user from the physical memory. Or let me put it this way, the virtual memory scheme abstracts the main memory into a large storage, separating logical memory as viewed by the user from the physical memory, right? So the large memory, when I say the virtual memory capacity can be around 2 GB or 2 MB, let me say virtual memory capacity is 2 MB, whereas your physical memory capacity is only 64 KB. So by the time the logical memory will be viewed as a physical memory itself by using the virtual memory scheme. Okay, so these are some of the operating system structures which are very closely related to the computer system structures. Now let us talk something about the operations of the operating system, how it is going to handle all these techniques in the operating system, because your computer is organized as a interrupt organized for handling the interrupts. So if so, how the operations of the operating system should also be handled. Now, if you take the operating system operations, modern operating systems are obviously interrupt driven. And when we are going to have the interrupt driven is the next question. Say for example, if there are no processors to execute, no input output devices to service, or no user programs, or no users to whom to respond, then the operating system is going to sit very quietly. It will be waiting for some event to happen, only then it will be responding. So if there is no program, no input output device to be serviced, and no users are requesting for a particular event, or they are triggering some event, in those cases the operating system is going to sit quietly. right? Now, what do you mean by an event in the operating system? Event is nothing but these are some these are always signaled by the occurrence of an interrupt or a trap. Trap is nothing but a software generated interrupt caused either by an error, for example, division by zero, or invalid memory access, or by a specific request from a user program that an operating system service to be performed. These are some of the events that may happen which will trigger an interrupt in the operating system. Now, whenever these kind of events are happening, it will be signaled as an interrupt, and for each type of interrupt, separate segments of the code in the operating system will determine what action to be taken place. Now, here an interrupt service routine will come into the scene, which will be provided to deal with the interrupt. So, this is the code that specifies how to handle the interrupt that happens because of the event that may be triggered by a program, or that may be triggered by a input output device, or that may be triggered by the user. Now, if you take the operating system, since the operating system and the users share the hardware and software resources of the computer system, we need to make sure that an error in the user program. So, sometimes in your program there may be an error or there may be an exception. So, an error in the user program could cause problems only for the one program which is running, and it should not affect other programs or the operating system. So, a properly designed operating system will ensure that an incorrect program cannot cause other programs to execute incorrectly. So, this error should affect only that program, and it should not affect other programs or the other part of the operating system. Say for example, suppose if job 2 is running, and if there is an error happening in job 2, this should not affect job 1, job 3, job 4 or the operating system execution, because here when it comes to the main memory, that means operating system is currently being executed, job 1 is executed, job 2, job 3 and job 4. So, if there is an error happening in job 2, it should not affect job 1, job 3, job 4 or the operating system. So, this is the point to be noted here. Okay. Now, if this is the one which is aimed, then the operating system should be designed in such a way that an error in one program should not cause problems to other programs to be executed. Now, if I want this particular concept to work in the operating system, that is, in order to ensure the proper execution of the operating system, it must be able to distinguish between the execution of operating system code and user defined code. So, as I told you, if there is an error happening in job 2, it should not affect the operating system execution, right? So, it should affect only this program and not other programs and the operating system. So, for giving a protection to this particular environment, or to distinguish between whether the operating system code is being executed or the user programs are executed, we need to ensure the proper execution of the operating system, for which the approach taken by most computer system is to provide hardware support that allows us to differentiate among various modes of execution. So, this modes of execution will decide whether it is the operating system code or the user application code. So, for which operating system will generally have two different modes. One is called as user mode, the other one is called as kernel mode. The kernel mode is otherwise called as supervisor mode, system mode or privileged mode. So, for distinguishing between these modes, a bit called as mode bit will be added to the hardware of the computer to indicate in which mode the system is currently working. So if the mode bit is 0, it is the kernel mode. If the mode bit is 1, it is going to be the user mode. So when the computer system is executing on behalf of a user application, the system will be working in the user mode. But however, when a user application requests a service from the operating system, right? So user program says, I want to get the input from the user, right? In your user program, whatever program you are writing in C or C++, they are all user programs. Okay. So if your C program is demanding for an input from the user, then obviously the user application, your program, right, your C program will request a service from the operating system using system call, right? System calls are nothing but some functions which are defined in the operating system to provide the services. So here when it is requesting, the system will transit from user mode to the kernel mode to serve the request. So this is what we have to understand. So when the computer system is executing the user program, it will be in the user mode. If the user program is requesting a service from the operating system, this computer will switch from the user mode to kernel mode, right? So this is how it will be having the transition. User process will be there, the user process will be executing, and by the time mode bit will be equal to 1 and you call it as user mode. When it is executing, if it wants any operating system service, it will use the system call, and it calls, the system call is nothing but some kind of functions, right? We will be discussing what is a system call later. So the function will be called here, system call function will be called here. When it calls the system call, because since system calls are part of the operating system, the mode will be switched from the user mode to the kernel mode. By the time the mode bit will be changed to 0, when it is changed to 0, obviously it enters into the kernel mode. So there it will have the system call function, and the system call function will be executed. After completing the system call function, it will go to the user mode by changing the mode bit to 1. Then it will return from the system call and again enters into the user mode. So whenever a user program is having a operating system service to be executed, it will request the service using the system call. By the time it will be transiting from user mode to the kernel mode. So what happens when the system is booting, the hardware will start in the kernel mode and the operating system will be then loaded and it starts user applications in the user mode. So whenever a trap or interrupt occurs, the hardware will switch from user mode to the kernel mode. So when you have user mode and kernel mode, we call it as dual mode of the operating system. And this dual mode of the operating system operation provides with the means for protecting the operating system from errant users, also from one another. So this dual mode is the one which protects the operating system, and not only the operating system, it also protects from one program to another program, right? So this dual mode is the one which is going to protect all the programs from an error that occur in one of the programs. So for which when you want to have this dual mode of operating system operation, some of the machine instructions will be designated as privileged instructions. Some of the machine instructions are designated as privileged instructions, and the hardware allows these privilege instructions to be executed only in the kernel mode. So some of the machine instructions are the privileged instructions, and these privileged instructions can be executed only by the operating system. It cannot be executed by the user application, right? So that is why we call it as privileged instructions, because operating system is the most privileged program that is running in your computer system. Okay, so the machine instructions which are designated as privileged instructions, say for example, if you want to read your data from the keyboard, then you will have a system call called read, which will wait for the user to press the keyboard, okay, any key on the keyboard. Or if you want to display something to the monitor, or if you want to print something onto the printer, then all these things will be done by some special machine instructions which are known as the privileged instructions, and these privileged instructions can be executed only by the operating system. അപ്പോൾ what happens, നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ if you want to have read function, right? For example, you write a C program. In your C program you have a scanf function. So this scanf function will invoke the read system call. Then the read system call will be executed in the kernel mode, and then it will return the value to the scanf function. So that is how it works. Okay, so we had seen here, but suppose let us say this user process is a C program. Now in the C program I have a scanf function. Now the scanf function cannot directly take the data from the keyboard. So what it will do, it will request the operating system saying that I want to read a data from the keyboard. So if it wants to read the data from the keyboard, a system call called read will be invoked. By the time the control will be transferred to the kernel mode. So there it will execute the read system call, and then it will return. So when it is returning, the read system call will return the data to the scanf function, and the scanf function will return the data to your user process. That is how it is going to work. Okay, so that is why we call them as privileged instructions. Say for example, input output control operations, timer management, interrupt management instructions, these are all known as privileged instructions, and these instructions can be executed only in the kernel mode. And sometimes your CPU supports virtualization also. So by the time, apart from these two modes, it will also have another mode called as virtual machine manager mode. Thereby you can say your computer system will be entering into the multi mode, not only dual mode, it will enter into multi mode. And this VMM has more privileges than user processes, but it fewer than the kernel mode. So kernel mode is having the highest privilege, then the VMM mode will have the next privilege, then the least privilege will be given to the user mode. That is how it will be working. Now, apart from the dual mode operation or the multi-mode operation, the operating system will also have a timer concept, because the user must ensure that operating system maintains control over the CPU. We cannot allow a user program to get stuck in an infinite loop or fail to call system services, and it fails to return the control to the operating system. Once it calls the system services, it is not returning the control to the operating system. For accomplishing all these things, we are going to use a concept called timer, and a timer can be set to interrupt the computer after a specified period. So the control will not be completely transferred to the user mode. Instead, the timer will check whether it needs to be switched from kernel mode to user mode and user mode to kernel mode. and this period, right? So a timer will be generating the interrupt after a specified period. The period will be a fixed period, or it may be a variable one. So fixed period means every 60 seconds interrupt will be generated, or it may be varying from 1 millisecond to 1 second. It depends, right? So it depends on how you are going to design the operating system and the timer. Based on that, the period will also be decided. Now, what the operating system will do, before transferring the control to the user program, the operating system will set the timer. It ensures that the timer is set to interrupt, and if the timer interrupts, the control transfers automatically to the operating system. So whenever it is switching from kernel mode to user mode, the timer will be initialized. Okay. Now, why the timer will be initialized? To prevent a user program from running too long, for which the operating system will maintain a counter. How it is going to maintain the counter? Initialize a counter with the amount of time that a program is allowed to run, right? So you can specify a time slot for the user program to be executed. Say for example, a program with 7-minute time limit, for example, would have its counter initialized to 420 seconds. Every second the timer interrupts and the counter is decremented by 1. So as long as the counter is positive, the control is returned to the user program. When the counter becomes negative, the operating system will suspend the program, or sometimes it will be terminating the user program. So this is how it is going to work. Okay, so these are some of the again terms or concepts that we should remember while discussing the design concepts of the operating system. So when we talk about the process management, memory management, device management, etc., by the time we will be discussing like what is operating system code, what is user defined code, how they are having the kernel mode and the user mode, then what do you mean by VMM mode, virtual memory mode, and how the timer will be used for managing the modes of the operating system. All these things we'll be discussing later, right? So the operating system structure and the operating system operations will give you a very superficial level of view of the operating system, right? So some of the terms that we discussed today are: in the operating system structure, one very important term is multi-programming environment. Then we talked about time sharing or multitasking environment. Then there we come across job scheduling, CPU scheduling, then the virtual memory. So there itself we can understand virtual memory is the one which is used in the memory management module, and job scheduling and CPU scheduling will be used in the processor management. Then the time sharing and the multi-programming is again used in the process scheduling techniques. So all these techniques are very much important for the operating system. And not only that, since the operating system cannot be, since the CPU cannot be kept idle, the operating system will be keep on waiting for some kind of events to happen, which will be handled by the interrupt driven operations. And we discussed what do you mean by an event, and all these events will be triggered by the interrupts, so that the interrupt service routine will be executed. And since the operating system and the user programs are going to share the resources, it needs to be protected. So for protecting, we are going to use two different modes. One is the user mode and the kernel mode, right? So the operating system will be switching from kernel mode to the user mode every time when it is executing. Then apart from the dual mode, we can also have multi-mode by adding VM, virtual machine manager kind of controls in the system. Then to ensure that the operating system maintains control over the CPU, we can have a concept called timer. So the timer will be set for a particular period, and it will be interrupting the operating system so that the user program will not be running for a longer time in the computer system, right? So these are some of the concepts we discussed today, and we'll be discussing the operating system major functions like process management, memory management, storage management, protection and security, etc., in the next session. Thank you.